Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. It's Saturday night. I'm Paul John Dykes. Saturday Night Fever with Chris McElwain. Double denim. He's a stylish guy. I've seen him on the dance floor a couple of times. Can't deny or confirm if he's got his dancing shoes on tonight. But I have seen them. I've seen them in an airport terminal where you had to take them off because there was a lot of kind of buckles and stuff like that. Listen, I'm not. I'm just suggesting that what he was wearing. I mean, look at the lights on his face. It looks like a disco. Right, sorry guys, I digress. It's Saturday night. Celtic are playing St Mirren. This is a massive game, and it's a massive game.
So
Chris.
unprofessional. So unprofessional.
Talking of which, here's Kev McCluskey joining the chat. Kev, all the way in from Hungary. Obviously, you know, there's been a big game recently against Hungary involving the Republic of Ireland. And we're out of the international break now. We're here to talk about Celtic and club football. And just before you came in, and just before we went live, in actual fact, I was saying to you, Chris McElwain, other than his disco shoes, I was saying to him that, you know, when it comes to the games, it's great to be able to focus on the game, Kev, because everything that's been dominating the world of Celtic has been off the field. And obviously yesterday was, I think, the pinnacle. I think it was the coming together, the perfect storm of all of that. And it's been very, very unfortunate. It's a bit grotty, everything that's going on between the board and the fans, and the way the fans are getting looked down at and demeaned, etc. It's quite clear where we stand with them. But it is also good to concentrate on the football. Kev, there's my opening 2-minute diatribe. I'm going to ask you the first question. Kev McCluskey, how are you feeling about the starting 11?
Right, so before I answer that one, I'm going to have to apologise to you personally here, because I was sitting waiting for you to allow me to join, and I realised I hadn't actually pressed the button to say enter the studio. So you were getting cursed in this household for not letting me in, and then I realised it was my fault.
Many other households as well, Kev. It's fine.
Yes,
Not a problem.
So I apologise. Yeah, let's talk about the football. Like you said, I think the last time I did a show, it was the day that Martin O'Neill came back in, and it was the three of us talking about that game against Falkirk, I think it was, if memory serves right. And it was all, everything else we wanted to talk about wasn't the game, or everything that had gone on. Like you say, the drama about Celtic just now is off the pitch rather than on it. So yes, it's great to finally just get here and talk about the game. I've kind of been dreading coming on to do this a little bit, because I feel that yesterday's going to overshadow a lot. It should take up a lot of our airspace for the next week. But today, let's take the half hour before the game and all that to just focus on the game, because I think that is what's important, and that is why we're all here. Looking at that team, I think it's probably the strongest available team that Martin and Sean could put out for this one. It's one that gives you, I think, enough confidence that we should do it, because St Mirren, although normally a pretty well organised team under Stephen Robinson, have been kind of up and down in their form recently. I think we lost 3 of the last 5 games, something like that. So they haven't been in great form. So you'd like to hope that what we've got there is there's enough going forward that will cause them problems and get a couple of goals that we'll need to win this game. Because I do think still defensively, that's the weakest that we've looked for a while. When you look at that, Ralston, Trusty, Scales and Tierney, I think there's weakness in there. But at the same time, you know, I'll say that, and then I'll backtrack later on by saying that Trusty's probably been the most improved player since Martin O'Neill's came in. Him and Engel, I think the two of them have really stepped up. And you alluded to it, there was a big game here last weekend, and Liam Scales played a massive part in that for the Republic of Ireland and helping them get through. So there's a little bit of maybe I still underestimate those two a little bit. But yeah, I say look at that team, man for man. I think we're strong enough to go and get the job done tonight. But I still think it will be a difficult game, because we usually get a difficult game in Paisley.
Well, that's a good point. You do look historically at grounds that can serve up difficult matches. Tonight is a must-win, Chris. I'm looking at the Premiership table. St Mirren currently sitting 9th. In the last 6 games, they've had 4 losses, a draw and a win. So you're looking at Celtic, you're looking at our form. It's not been great, but it's been fine domestically since Martin O'Neill came in. So you're coming to this ground and you're thinking, with that team that we've just had a look at the start of 11, and we'll look at it in more detail, we've got enough here. I'm going to ask you one question that kind of veers towards everything that's going on, because I do find this quite interesting. How does it affect, or does it affect the players? Because I look at Martin O'Neill almost as a shield when it comes to this, right? So you've got all the noise outside the training ground, all this fan media pressure, all this media pressure, all the fan collective pressure. And I said to you before we came on, this shouldn't affect the players. Now,
No.
I've got quite a solid look on this, right? And it is very much one-sided, because unless you're looking for this now, it's not like you walk into a shop and the tabloids are there. That was the old days. That was the 90s. And every single time, and it's unavoidable, the sandwich boards outside every other shop telling you Celtic in crisis, the crest broken in half and all this. That was unavoidable. And bizarrely enough, now with the communication streams being as they are, I think it actually is avoidable. And I'm going to go back to Klopp. Klopp, manager of Liverpool. Someone led a question in the press conference, Chris, and they said to him, what do you make of all this noise on social media? He says it doesn't exist unless you go looking for it. What's your thoughts on it, Chris? Am I being too, I don't know, idealistic when it comes to professionalism of sports people?
Well, just to touch on professionalism, if the guys in the chat don't behave, then we'll be forced to close this podcast for at least 30 minutes. So just making that point. So behave yourselves, guys.
Christmas T-shirt or Christmas jersey in the post with behave on it.
Absolutely.
Yes, I can see it. Could that be his legacy? Potentially. Yeah.
Anyway, look.
Wait a minute though. What are they misbehaving because they're having a dig at your cowboy boots?
Absolutely. It's the hair. The hair's getting it, and I'm not putting up with it.
That's
fine.
We only slag people off when we like them, Chris.
Yeah. No, listen. I know we're making light of that, and there'll be plenty of time to talk about what happened yesterday over the coming days. And that's one of the great things about the content that Acsom pumps out. It's daily and it keeps coming. So lots of opportunity to do that. But you're right. I think it's interesting. We were speaking before the broadcast about whether this would affect the players or has it got the potential to affect the players. And I think it's interesting that back when you've spoken about other players and spoken to ex-players, and they've said, look, when things were going on in the background, we were, either by voluntarily or by virtue of the manager's action, we were able to kind of avoid it, and just focus on what we did in the ground. And the one element you want is you don't want the players to have the excuse for poor performances by blaming it on what's going on, external to the on-field action. But I think it also comes down. I mean, now we're in an era where social media is so prevalent, and it's information overload at times. I mean, you just see that following all the events in the last 24 to 48 hours. The sheer amount of information that's pumped towards you. So it takes a bit of discipline to try and separate yourself from that. But I think as a professional footballer, you have an individual responsibility to do that and focus on the job at hand. For me, it's very, very important that you keep that degree of separation. And I think that Liam Scales was a great example of that recently when he was asked that very question after what was a poor performance by the team, and he said, "Look, there's no excuses. That what's happening external to the team." He said that's not anything to do with us. Our job is just to do the business on the park, and if we don't do it, it's on us, nothing else. So I think that there's an element of individual responsibility, but I think it also comes down to the manager and the coaching staff, Martin O'Neill, Sean Maloney, Mark Fotherham, etc., and everyone else involved, to make sure that there is that element of separation. It's a case of, look, guys, forget what's going on in the background. Whatever you've heard, not heard, don't let it impact you. Focus on your training, focus on your tactics, focus on what we need to do this game, focus on what we need to do for the remainder of the season. So I think there's a big responsibility on the players themselves, but also the manager and the coaching staff to try and keep these quite distracting elements away as much as they possibly can away from the players. And I think there's also an element of reminding the players of their responsibility to the fans and the supporters to give their best, irrespective of what else they may be facing.
Irrespective of the demeanour in which we saw Peter Lawwell and Ross Desmond behave towards the fans. Absolutely. But we are going to focus. We're going to focus on the game, and I've got some great comments coming in. So thanks everybody for joining us tonight. We've got a fresh 1,000 views on the live, so this is great pre-match. And obviously we'll be here at halftime and full time as well. So thanks to all the old school, and thank you to anyone who's new. We'll get this out the way first. Behave, says Forever Celtic. We'll try our best. We will try our best to behave. And I don't know which cat you're talking about, the one sitting on Kevin's couch or the one in the top right of your screen, Donny, Tiny Hands. What is the cat's name, Kevin McCluskey?
The cat is called Pirlo, after Andrea Pirlo.
Okay.
There we go.
My now deceased cat was
do
Bobo.
agree. Yeah.
Big Bobo.
I do agree with the comments coming in that says that he would do a better job on the board than the current board.
He looks pretty bored, to be fair. Yeah, as I say, we've all had
That's
a
he's got to listen to me all day.
Aye, well, we've got a. I think most of us have had a pet in the past named after a Celt, and as I said, mine was Bobo. Chris can furnish us with anything he's had in the past. Darius, no, none.
No. I don't want to say it tonight because my dog's name was Buddy, and this is a bad night to be bringing that up.
Yeah, named after. Okay, Brown Warrior. Any of you, but it's a bad time tonight, but it's probably Buddy Holly. Knowing you, any of the boys catch the new McTominay song to the tune of "The Power of Love" by Jennifer Rush? Banging. No, but the reason I brought this up is that it just shows you what a nation can achieve, a nation's football team can achieve. And I went and picked a wee fella up last week for the first time ever. Him and all his mates were talking about Scotland. They never talk about Scotland. You know, it's all the Premiership, and it's even Inter Miami, Barcelona, Real Madrid, talking about McTominay's bicey. That's what they call it now. It's a bicey. Here we go. McMahon, 6712, double denim, got a shot at the boards. This goal that you're getting it tight.
I know.
We're talking about parties. The parties in Jungle Lions' shed. One day, Jungle Lion, we will be there streaming live. No Inamura or Pusey on the bench. No, you're right, Plunge. I don't know what to make of that, but I'm going to use the Pusey point in relation to something that was brought up earlier on by our very own Quinny in the chat group, and it's the performances of one of our loanees, Mike Nawrocki. Kev, I'm in a situation now where I'm thinking it's all hands on deck here at Celtic. We need as much as we possibly can get in terms of margins. We need as much quality, as much bodies, as much backup. We're hearing CCVs out until the end of the season. Trusty's just come back in. Scales has been an ever-present virtually. Who are the backups? Well, Simpson Pusey has played one game. It's Dane Murray. And that's it. You know, so I look at someone like Mike Nawrocki who is performing well. It's looking good for him. And I'm just thinking, see, come January, we need to win this league. We need to get as strong a squad as possible. And if Nawrocki wasn't fancy with a last manager, let the next manager have a look at him. Bring him back. End the loan deal early. That's my take on it, Kev. What's yours?
I would agree with that 100%. If there's any chance that we've got any clause in the contract that we can bring him back, even if we need to pay a fee to break the contract, to break the loan deal, do it, bring him back. It was a strange one to me in the first place that we let him go, because I don't think he's ever let us down when he's played for us.
No.
And he's been that boy that he'd maybe had 3-4 months out the team, but the game he would come back in always seemed to be a big game. And I'm thinking Glasgow derbies, where he would end up being the man of the match. He'd be the best defender in the park for us. Never let us down. Always pretty solid in the air, decent tackling, passing was all right. He's very much to me in the mould of a Martin O'Neill defender. He can do the basics very well, and his basic with passing is I'll just give it to McGregor or Engels or someone else that can actually play and do the fancy stuff. So if there's any way we can bring him back, I definitely would. And it was on the point of him when we were discussing at the Falkirk game when he was first came back. Obviously, the game before that was Hearts, where Dane Murray's been thrown in. He's made 3 mistakes, cost us 3 goals, cost us the game.
Yeah.
Had we had Nawrocki available and Nawrocki was ahead of him in the queue, I don't think he makes any of those mistakes. And that game is a very different game. So I think that's the levels of those 2 players. And if there's any way that we can bring them back, I think we've got to have Trusty and Scales run until the end of the season isn't enough. Dane Murray hasn't done enough to prove that he's good enough yet. And we've not seen any of Simpson Pusey to have any sort of opinion as to what he'll bring to the team. Nawrocki's a bit of a known quantity. Bring him back if we can, and you've got trust and confidence in that defence.
There's quite a lot in there, Kev, that I agree with, because I think, it's not for us to speculate, but it's clear that Brendan Rodgers didn't rate Lagerbielke or Nawrocki, Chris. He just didn't play them. And, he even said when Nawrocki came back in last season for a few games, one of which being the Rangers game, and he performed really well, as Kev says, had Dane Murray been fit, he'd have played those games. Brendan Rodgers said that. So, he just wasn't going to pick him. And a new manager comes in, and as well as giving a different mood in the camp and a bounce and all the new manager bounce, etc., other people can wipe the slate clean. Other people can maybe actually rebuild their Celtic careers. And, I'm not going to spend the night just talking about somebody who's not actually here at the moment and they're elsewhere playing their football. But it does take us on to the subject of Martin O'Neill and what he's done since he's come in. He wasn't expecting to be in the dugout tonight, was he? How long is he going to be in the dugout? He says not until the next AGM for sure. He said that today. But how long? I mean, how long is this going to be? What do you think? Because we're as unstable as ever now after yesterday. Sorry to bring it up, guys, in the comment section, but I think that bleeds right into the decision-making process of bringing in a new manager. You bring a new manager into this mayhem, this chaos, this noise. It's not ideal. Martin O'Neill's here. He knows what's going on, and I think he's a calming influence.
I was going to say, I think the only element that's actually brought stability has been Martin O'Neill himself, and of course Sean Maloney. I think, look, it's the purview of any manager to decide which players or which type of player or category of player they want to use or they can get the best out of. Now, look, not to again denigrate our former manager, but I think I understand that you want to have certain players in that can play a system that you want to play. So I do understand that element of it. But look, with the circumstances being what they are and the players that were at his disposal, I think a manager has to find a way to get the best out of those players, irrespective of whether they're a natural fit for his system. Surely part of being a manager is to find a way to utilise players that gets the maximum amount of effectiveness from them. Even if that means you have to swallow your pride a little bit, or you have to use your tactical nous to say, okay, maybe Nawrocki, for example, or Lagerbielke, maybe they are not going to play the ball out from the back the way I want. What can they bring to the table? Well, actually, they're as old-fashioned, kind of old-school defenders. They're actually pretty good, and we're seeing evidence of that with Nawrocki and to an extent Lagerbielke's performances since they've been away from the club. So I think that's one of the real benefits that Martin O'Neill's brought in is that he looked at the players that are there, and I think he simplified things for them, and he's not trying to, fit them into an area where they're maybe not quite as effective. I think what he's saying is, look, I know you've got ability, I know you can go and bring, something positive to the team, so go and show it, just take some of the overcoaching element out of it. And I think, that's at a time when you've got so much instability in all other areas of the club. It's so important to have that level of stability, that calming influence, that, having a manager who's maybe just trying to eke out the best out of those players and allow them to do their job. And as I say, that kind of ties into what we were saying earlier. A part of a manager's job is keep the negativity away. Alex Ferguson, I thought, was great at that with his Man United players. He'd always come out and he would never criticise his players publicly. He would always say, look, my players, I'll look after my players. I think Martin O'Neill's got an element of that as well. And I think, what he does is he'll be shielding the players from any negativity, he'll be shielding them from any outside factors. But what he's also doing is he's saying, look, you're right, as you said, this is a clean slate. Go out there, show what you can do. It's another opportunity. Prove to me that you deserve to be in the team, but just do it by believing in yourself. And I think that's something we've really needed. You get the impression we've not had that for quite a while.
I remember speaking to Martin O'Neill in relation to obviously the first time he came to the football club and going through that process of assessing the squad. And there were a few players that he did not fancy at all. He didn't like Ajo Berkovic's attitude. He realised also that Berkovic was on more money than Henrik Larsson when O'Neill took over. So he put that right. He put it right. The other one was Raphael Scheidt, and there was a suggestion for a long time, and it was an urban myth that he asked Tommy Burns, who's the number 31? That's Raphael. Well, give me his squad number because he'll never play for Celtic. And he wore number 31 ever since. But we know that's not true because he wore number 31 at Leicester. Nice urban myth in any case. I want to talk in terms of the international break then, Kevin McCluskey. Kieran Tierney. We've got to speak about Tierney. You know, obviously Casper never saved, but Kieran Tierney, when that ball broke to him, honestly, I'm watching it like most Celtic fans thinking, oh, I'd love a turning point for Kieran Tierney right now. I'd love him to curl this right into the net, which he did. At that point, you're thinking this is the winner. Obviously, there was an icing on the cake later on. Tierney needed something, I think. Do you think he's going to kick on as a result of that? Because often, international breaks, Kevin, it's all about just keep the players fit. But we might get something out of Tierney in that international break that will hold him in good stead.
You'd like to hope so. You'd like to hope so. And I think we all had that same thought when the ball broke out, as it did on Tuesday night. You know, and you see it's Tierney, you're just like, oh, best player in the park, it could possibly have broken to. And what a finish that was. I mean, I was jumping up and cheering and screaming so loud that I was waiting for the eviction notice to be slammed in the door the next morning. It was just went mental. But for him personally, I mean, that must have been unreal, you know, to get that goal. Everyone knows that the Kieran Tierney that left Celtic was one of the best left backs in the world and had the potential to become even better and go on to play. I mean, I don't think I'm speaking too out of turn or being too over exaggerating this. I think he could have gone to play for a Real Madrid or a Barcelona. He had that kind of trajectory in him, but his body just couldn't cope with the physical demands of the game, and it's taken its toll on him. Possibly he has needed something like this just to really give the spark back, because you would like to imagine, as we've been talking about the players blocking all the off-field noise out of things because they're professional and they're kind of tunnel-minded and got the single-minded focus on just doing the job on the pitch. When something like that happens as well, I think it gives you that extra impetus as well. So hopefully this is something that can just go on and kind of kick his career on again. And Celtic are the ones that are going to benefit from it, because I don't see that he's going to move on again anytime soon. So if we can get, I don't think we'll ever get Kieran Tierney back to 100% of the player he was before. If we can get him back to 75, 80% of the player, then I think we've got the best left back in Scotland by a distance. And he can achieve that again, I'm sure.
One of the things about going down to the award ceremony is you get to speak to fans of English sides. Very England-centric events, these things. And I did speak to a few Arsenal fans about Kieran Tierney, because obviously, you know, we were talking to a couple of Greek football fans, one of whom actually moved over, came to the event from America. He was a kind of statistics data guy. And, you know, you speak to him about Giakoumakis, you speak to him about Samaras, and of course Postecoglou. But when I was talking to the Arsenal fans, it was all about Kieran Tierney. Now, it might seem bizarre now what you've said there, Kevin, about his trajectory. But I remember at the time when he left the football club for 25 million quid, it was like, where next for Tierney? And I said it, it's on the show back in the day. It's on a show. I said, well, his trajectory is bigger than Arsenal. So you were talking maybe a Real Madrid. And I spoke to the Arsenal fans who said, you know, in the early stages of his career, they were very excited about what this player could achieve. But obviously, for all the reasons that you've described, Kevin, it didn't quite go that way. We get him back in the team. The elation, Chris, the elation of, you know, qualifying for a World Cup finals and the way that they did, but also still being in with a chance of qualifying with the Irish boys, Liam Scales and Johnny Kenny. Surely that comes into your club game the following week. You know, that momentum, that elation, the confidence that they must be feeling.
Yeah, there's a great video doing the rounds of Andy Robertson, funnily enough, turning up back at the Liverpool training ground, and he's greeted like a returning hero, you know, and that's going to, you know, an English club, and, you know, the adulation from kind of his teammates and, you know, on the training ground and things like that. John McGinn's getting similar at Aston Villa, you know, they're all kind of hero worshipping him, and you know, I think we can't underestimate how big an achievement this is. So you're hoping actually for the boys at our club, you know, KT, you know, Liam Scales, etc. You're looking for these guys to get a little bit of a bounce from what they're, you know, certainly what Scotland has achieved and what Ireland's on the verge of achieving, which I think is fantastic for both, you know, both nations. So Yeah, what I'd like to do is see him use that as a bit of a springboard. It's not just for in terms of his form, but for his confidence as well. I think his confidence has taken a knock. He's been subject to criticism. Some justifiable maybe for his performances. I think he came with a very high level of expectation because of what he'd achieved before, because of the profile of player that he was. He's come into a problem position as well. Something that many people were crying for improvements in. And I don't think he's personally done that badly. I just think that the expectation levels were so high, it was always going to be extremely challenging. What he proved again the other night with Scotland is that he is a quality class player, right? And as we always say, form is temporary, class is permanent. I agree with Kevin. We may not get the same Kieran Tierney that we had previously, and that many people hope we have. I don't think that necessarily means you're going to get a player who's diminished. What you might get is a player who's more aware of the capabilities of his body, the capabilities of his age and his tenure, and what we might find is he starts to drive more of those attributes which are becoming more important: his leadership qualities, his experience, his tactical nous on the back line, trying to help out maybe those players who are less experienced, knowing what it takes to win in this competition, and win trebles and be part of invincible, that kind of thing. So I think KT's got a lot to offer, and as I say, when you get big moments like what happened with the national team during the week, that can only act as a catalyst to really kick on for the remainder of the season.
I hope so, because prior to Sirachi's injury, Tierney had lost his place in Celtic's starting 11. He's got it back, and hopefully the start of this renaissance will have been Tuesday night for Scotland. Brown Warrior, fancy Calmac to score tonight. He loves a wee daisy cutter in cold weather. It is getting cold, the slabbering cabbage. I wonder how many offside goals will be given tonight, and how many blatant penalties St Mirren won't be given, Can't think what you're referring to there. Hail, come on, you boys in green. 4-1 Celtic. Patrick James Simpson comes in. Facial cameras at the ground will focus on protesters, etc. And they will have their season tickets voided and new supporters replacing them. There's a lot of worry going around at the moment when you see just what these people in charge of Celtic think of a fraction, they say, of a faction, not a fraction, that's completely different. That's along the lines of Pythagoras, a faction of Celtic fans who might be troublemakers. Great to see Laurie jumping into the chat. Congratulations on the award, PJ, and the rest of the team, of course. Well deserved. We're going to build on it, Laurie. We won't stand still. There's been big developments with our big move, and that will be happening very, very soon. What's happening with Pusey? We don't know. Is the real answer. He came in, he played one game, and then he disappeared again. But Shin Yamada is on the bench, and he's followed the same kind of path as Osmond and also Simpson Pusey in having a B team game before then appearing in the first team. So hopefully he'll get a run out tonight as well. We've also got Scott Dougal. Let's concentrate on the game tonight. Much needed 3 points. We've tried our best, Scott. There's been one or two comments that have veered into the off the field issues, but not a great deal. And then Monty comes in. There you go, Monty. Let's get out of our system. Right. Great to see you, my friend. Let's get a little prediction from you, first of all, Kevin McCluskey, tonight.
I think there'll be goals in this one. I've been looking back. St Mirren have conceded 2 goals in 4 of their last 5 in the league. So I think they've got a shaky defence. Johnny Kenny, I think, is on form at the minute. Again, another one coming back from the international break full of confidence. So I think there'll be goals in this. Let's go 3-1 Celtic.
3-1 Celtic. Johnny Kenny getting a mention. There was rumours actually earlier this season, Chris, that he might have gone to St Mirren on loan, and now he's our first choice striker. We're wearing our black kits, which is a throwback to the Stop in the 10 season, away jersey with a lime detail. There's Big Casper behind Callum McGregor, who's zoning out. He's zoning in. I'm not sure what he's doing, but he's focused anyway. And we're almost ready to go in the park and get kicked off. But I want a prediction from you first, Chris.
Yeah, I'm quite a big admirer of St Mirren manager Stephen Robinson. I think he always gives us a hard game. It's a difficult venue to go to. I think we've got enough about us to win, but I do think it'll be tight. What I do hope, probably more than the scoreline, which I'll give you in a second, is I hope we don't come away with any more injuries. That's almost as important as the win tonight. But I'll go for a 2-1 win to the Hoops.
2-1 to the Hoops, the black and lime green Hoops, as it were. Arnie Engels has had an upturn of form since Martin O'Neill came in. Hopefully that will continue as well. And there's Dice Maida with yet another haircut. Brilliant to see Dyson still at the football club, and hopefully that extends beyond January if he is up for it, of course. What do we make of Tineke then? Because he came in almost in a blaze of glory, didn't he, Kev? And then he's gone off the boil a little bit. I'm not saying he's not played well. He deserves his spot in the team. I don't think we've got an option, to be honest with you. But if you compare the fact that he came in the same window as Balakwisha, he has made an impact, a positive impact, but I think he needs to be more consistent.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing with him, and it's the big thing with all wingers. It's getting consistency in the game. He definitely has made a far bigger impact in the team than Balakwisha has. But you know, as much as he's been getting a bit of criticism, I think he's done all right in most games he's played. His final ball could definitely be improved, at decision making and like in the final third and whatnot. But still, I still think there's a player in there. He's tricky, he's pacey, he likes to take his man on. If you can just get the final ball a wee bit better, then, which is something you can work on in the training ground, then I think we've got a player there. But we do need to get the consistency in his game, and that's the big thing that we seem to lack with our wingers, except from Jota, who's until next year. So we do need a big performance from him or Balakwisha if he comes off the bench.
Yeah, we definitely need one of them, that's for sure. Thanks, everybody, for coming onto the show this evening. It's a Saturday night. We've got about 1,200 live. We are going to take a break for the first half, and we'll be back at half-time. Give us a big thumbs up on the channel, subscribe as well. And join us at half-time with Chris and Kevin on a Celtic State of Mind.
On hips.